and I'll give you an answer later at the national level. So I'd like to conclude this section on efficiency by making it very clear that efficiency is the first step towards a revolution. We must learn to use water, materials and energy efficiently. When we compare two factories, I was looking at two chocolate factories. And in these two chocolate factories, it's the same company that uses the same machinery to make the same chocolate. In one of the factories, 1 unit of energy manufactures 1 chocolate bar. In the other factory, 1 unit of energy makes 6 chocolate bars. This is a 500% difference in performance. If every factory in your country was as efficient as the factory on the right, this would make a big difference. So we asked ourselves, how big would that difference be? And we made a calculation and we said, if you look at each sector, this graph is for the automotive sector in Britain, if you look at each sector and you took the best factory and you moved all of the factories halfway to the best, so only halfway, what would this mean? And our report, and you can follow the link to read it at the bottom of the page, explains the results. In Britain, if the factories moved halfway, they would increase their profit by 12%. Every company, every manufacturing company in Britain would increase their profit by 12%, generating £10 billion. We would create 300,000 new jobs and we would save 27 million tons of CO2. These are massive improvements just by being efficient. So I'm really emphasizing the importance of this message. I was listening to the minister earlier with his joke about maybe his mother asking him, should he have an easier job? Well, I'm going to say in factories, the easy way to be efficient is usually expensive. You buy the very, very best equipment. The hard way to be efficient is to use brain power. This is cheap. And this is what I am encouraging. If you improve your efficiency without technology, this is very hard to compete with because it is difficult to copy and it can generate very, very big returns. So I'm going to encourage you to stay and do it the hard way, but the cheap way. Now, my final message is about many of the things that we're currently working on with companies in Europe and sometimes around the world. Companies who have already become efficient are trying to work out what their next change might be so that they can be more sustainable manufacturers. And one of the things that they're doing is innovating their business model. I'm going to give you some examples to show you what this means. But business model is the logic of the company, the logic of how we deliver value to our customers, to our neighbors, to the planet, to our staff, and how they deliver value back to us. And we are now working on many projects where we are changing how this value is generated. You may have heard of the circular economy, for example, and this is a particular form of business model innovation where we keep the materials generating value for as long as possible. I'd now like to give you 3 examples which show what business model innovation might be. This first example is from River Simple. River Simple is a startup car company that I'm one of the founders of. And at the bottom you can see the car at the launch of the company. Now we have 7 important components to our strategy, but the one I'd like you to concentrate on is number 2. You cannot buy our car. You can only rent the car, and it's like a telephone contract. You pay for the car every month and for every kilometer that you travel. We put the fuel in the car. This is very, very important. This is how the business model logic changes. By putting the fuel in the car, we have a motive to decrease the amount of fuel. So we are going to make sure that the car is as efficient a car as it is possible to have. So when the car is efficient, we make more profit. In a normal car industry, if the car is more efficient, the customer makes more profit. And that's a problem for the current car industry. So what happens when the car companies deliver a car with fuel? Well, this car can travel 100 kilometers on 1 liter of fuel equivalent. This is a real car. You can drive it today, 1 liter per 100 kilometers. You cannot make money from these cars if you sell them in a traditional way. By changing the business model, we can make a 1 liter per 100 kilometer car available. The customer can own the car for less money than it takes to own a smart car, and the company can generate more than $10,000 profit. So everybody benefits. The only people who don't benefit from this solution are the oil companies. And I'm okay with that. So this is a really good example of internalizing something that the other companies are not dealing with. So by bringing the fuel cost into the company, we have a very different system. This company, British Sugar, I know you have a very big sugar industry. In Colombia, you use cane sugar. In Britain, we use sugar beet to make our sugar. But in this factory, every molecule that arrives into the factory leaves as a high-value product. This is a discovery that they made 20 or 30 years ago, and now this company has invested in many different ways of getting the chemical value out of their waste. Previously, their waste was taken back into farms, usually to be used as some form of fertilizer. Now they are creating betaine, lime, even tomatoes. So this company saw that it had some low-grade heat, and it put this heat, it wanted to make money out of this heat. And they put that heat into the greenhouses in the picture near the river. And now the sugar company is the second biggest manufacturer of tomatoes in Britain. This is a company that understands how to capture value from biology, and I think it's a very important message in a country with the greatest biodiversity in the world per square kilometer. The really interesting thing about this factory is that it's the second cheapest place to make sugar in the world. In a high-cost country, it's the second cheapest because they've invented the system of manufacturing in a different way. And I would encourage you to think about other ways of generating value from the biology that you're surrounded by in your factories. So this is my last slide. I'd just like to conclude by reminding you of some of the really important messages. When we studied the food manufacturing and the importance of sustainability, it was clear that sustainability was going to be one of the things that would change manufacturing in the future. In Colombia, you have the opportunity to generate a lot of value from your resources. Your biological resources are extreme. And I would encourage you to find ways to generate extreme levels of value from these fantastic resources, and not just to turn them into commodities. You will know that manufacturing will change in its distribution around the planet, so more manufacturing will be occurring closer to the customer, and more manufacturing will be occurring closer to the raw material. So we will see much smaller factories, much more widely distributed around the world. And this is a good thing to prepare for. By 2050, a lot of manufacturing is going to be biological. At the moment, it tends to be mineral based. In the future, it will be biology based. And Colombia is in a great position to use its biology very effectively and deliver value. I've already hinted that factories will have to be sustainable, and by sustainable I mean cleaning. I'm going to suggest that by 2050 the air coming out of factories will be cleaner than the air going in to factories. The water coming out of that factory will be cleaner than the water going into the factory. These are things that are already happening in some small percentage factories worldwide. The materials that those factories use are likely to be local materials, and we will be adding the maximum value to those materials and delivering high quality jobs. Factories like that, I would suggest that across Colombia people might be saying, please can we have one of your factories in our village? I'd like to finish. Thank you very much.